Hello and welcome to TKO Boxing. Please like, follow and subscribe. Our YouTube is TKO Boxing and our Instagram and TikTok is at TKO Boxing 2021. So this week we're going to talk about the fight on Saturday, which is Joe Joyce against Carlos Takam. And we're lucky enough that we've got somebody from both sides. Josh and Scott both have difference of opinions, let's say. So we're going to come to Josh first, who's all about Joyce. So what do you think, Josh, about the fight?
I think it's a good fight, isn't it? Joyce, he's got lofty positions with some of the governing bodies. He could have just waited and bided his time to a world title shot, but he's took a bit of a risky fight. I will say Takam, at 40 years old, he probably isn't what he was, but it's still a dangerous fight. I think there's only one winner. I think Joe Joyce wins comfortably by knockout. I think, he's the bigger guy, so the height will come into it massively. Although Takam's reach is actually half an inch bigger, he hasn't got that. I think Joe Joyce's jab is going to be the difference here. Look at what he did to Dubois. And we have briefly mentioned it previously. I'm not the biggest fan of Dubois, but, he effectively knocks him out with his jab, didn't he? It was just, he just kept hitting away at his eye and obviously it caused the stoppage. I think it'll be too much for Takam. He's too strong. I only see it going one way, to be honest. I think Joyce has got it in the bag. I think he's got the better resume. Lenroy Thomas in his fourth fight for the Commonwealth, and he's beat Bryant Jennings. As we've already said, the Dubois, even Ustinov, you can argue he took Ustinov past his prime, but still a boxer in there with pedigree. I think it's quite clear Joyce is going to win. I know you don't feel like that, Scott, but yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, going to be a bit of a 50-50 fight, I think. I am favouring with Takam. The reason I say this is he's picked up 5 career losses. One very early on in his career, which was unanimous decision, which I'm just going to kind of wipe that one out the way, really. The other 4, 3 of them have been by knockout. And the only time he's ever lost on points was, of course, the unanimous decision against Joseph Parker. So it's an interesting one, actually, because you kind of go against what I was thinking. I was thinking, does Joe Joyce have does he have that power to knock him out? And I suppose you make a really good point that it's not going to be that one punch, is it? He's going to work him down continuously. You look at the Dubois fight, though, and you think, okay, yes, he damaged the eye. He was perhaps a better fighter. But I think, as you alluded to, and I agree with you, I'm not a massive fan of Dubois. I think Takam's going to bring a lot more experience. And at the end of the day, I agree with you. Joe Joyce could just sit very cushy now. He's obviously in line for a world title shot. But for me, I'm kind of like, who have you actually fought? I'm not saying Takam's resume looks much better. I mean, Takam every time he stepped up, he's lost, hasn't he? And of course, he lost to Chisora. But then I compared Joe Joyce and Chisora, and I think, you know what? I think Chisora probably knocks out Joyce. Every one of Takam's losses, for me, I think Joyce also loses those fights, in my opinion, apart from the one very on in his career, which I think was about his 10th fight, maybe, which was, I guess that was just so early on in his career, it's not really worth debating. I don't know. I just feel that if Joyce can't knock out Takam, against Joshua, there was perhaps some rounds where, for me, Takam, there weren't many, but there was a couple of rounds for me where Takam perhaps won the rounds. I think we've seen him pick up points and rounds against the bigger players at times. It's just been that knockout against the bigger ones. He obviously doesn't have the best chin. You've made another good point about his age as well. Obviously getting older, 40 years old now. But I'm just really not a Joyce fan. I'm really not. I think, look, he's been managed terribly. Let's not. And, he was putting that Dubois fight. I think we'd all agree he's been putting that fight to lose, weren't he, at the end of the day? He was putting that fight to basically be the big name that Dubois won against to push on his career. And I think that's kind of been shown by the fact of how long his next fight's taken and who it's actually come against. But I don't know. For me, I just feel that Takam is probably going to win this on points. I don't see Joyce knocking him out, and I don't see Takam winning by knockout either. So for me, it came down to a question of points, and I've gone for Takam.
So do you think this is a tougher test than the Dubois one? Because I think that was built for both of them as the big test. So do you see this as a sideways step and upwards? What do you both see this as?
I see that it's a bigger fight than the Dubois fight. I think it's harder. You know, Dubois is a typical. I mean, we'll probably have to do a video on it at some stage because otherwise it'll sit like, particularly I'm just bashing Frank Warren. But I think it was Dubois a typical Frank Warren hype job. He's fought nobodies. You know, before he went in with Joyce, his biggest win was against Nathan Gorman, which is probably English title level in reality. And if you notice with Frank Warren, his fighters are always ranked heavily with the WBO, which, it's a sanctioning fee. We all know what goes on behind a closed door with these sorts of situations. So you can effectively buy your rankings. Look at when Fury fought Tom Schwartz. He was WBO number 2, and it was like, who's he fought? And he fought a load of German tomato cans, basically. So it's definitely a step up, Takam. And the one thing I will say that, in fairness, Scott sort of half alluded to there, is Takam did cause Anthony Joshua problems, didn't he? And that was obviously due to the height advantage that obviously Joyce will also have, that Joshua had when they were up close. Takam did. I think he actually broke Joshua's nose with an accidental clash of heads, sort of when they were in close. That could happen again. And to be fair to Joyce, we've not seen him push to the limit. He's never been in danger in his pro career yet. He's handled everybody really well. So I think it's a really interesting fight. And, other than it typically being Frank Warren underpromoted, it's sort of Joe Joyce is just undervalued, exactly as Scott said. I think it's a much bigger fight than it's actually getting credit for.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that, Josh. Actually, I think it is a bigger test. I think Takam's going to bring a lot more in-ring experience than obviously Dubois did. And as you say, Dubois, I think he's just been pitched against nobodies to make him look impressive. He's obviously got that physique. He's got to date, he's been before obviously the Joyce fight, I should say, he looked like he was just this guy that was just going to come in and knock everyone out. But I think the Joyce one's going to be a bigger test. The Takam fight's going to be a bigger test. But yeah, it is going to be an interesting fight. I mean, one question I'll ask you both really, though, is do you think Joyce needs to do something impressive? Because for me, I've watched him and I thought at times he's been kind of like, he's obviously been a pretty stable fighter, but he's quite boring. Let's be honest. He is quite a boring fighter to watch. I don't know if that's just me, but he looks like sometimes he has feathers in his right hand, especially his backhand.
I think he's a boxer, isn't he? As opposed to, that fan-friendly brawling style that, we all like. But, Tyson Fury's been accused of that. It's only because his last fight was hugely entertaining that all of a sudden his sort of reputation's changed a little bit. So I do know where you're coming from. I think Joyce needs to make a statement. And I think he will. I honestly think he'll do it in the middle to late rounds. I really think he'll get the stoppage. Again, it won't be a one-punch knockout. I think it'll be an accumulation and probably a TKO ref stoppage. I think he'll get it. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, Ben, let's hear Ben's prediction to decide it.
Going off what Scott just said, though, with Joyce, I think even though you say, does he need a big win, I think he's always been convincing. You say, he has had names there, a lot of the names towards the end of the career, but you look at the names he's got, the other bigger heavyweights have got the same names. Mm-hmm. And I just think that he's always convincing. He never looks under pressure. You never even think he's lost at the end or he got lucky. He's never got lucky. He's just gone in, he's done the job. Whether it's not been entertaining, he's gone there to box. And at the end of the day, that aims to win. And he wins. I do think he had deceiving power. Some of the knockouts, they don't even look like he's hit them that hard. And they go down. I don't think it's one punch, but Dubois, none of those jabs look deadly. But yet, what you saw to his eye, there must have been power behind him. And I actually think he's going to use that jab on the weekend. And I think I'm going against Scott. I think he's going to win on points, Joyce. I do.
You think he wins on points? Wow,
yeah,
okay.
I think he goes all the way. I don't think, like with Joshua's stoppage against Takam, I thought it was a soft stoppage, I did personally. Because of the way Takam is, he never stepped off him. He did against Chisora, and that's why he went down. I think he'll go with the Joshua tactics for this. And I think he'll just keep going at Joyce. I think Joyce will keep at arm's length for the jab, and he'll just keep him away. And I think he'll just go and he'll do the job like he does best. But also, the news today is Joyce has been confirmed as a WBO mandatory now with the Usyk and Joshua fight going ahead. So what do you think about that, Josh?
No, yeah, well, confirmed today. His manager Sam Jones announced it. It's not shocking, is it? Obviously, it was coming. That was sort of how the Dubois and Joyce fight was billed, as sort of winner gets the next shot, depending on the undisputed. We've obviously today as well, Anthony Joshua and Usyk confirmed for September the 25th at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And I think it's great news for Joyce, obviously, because he's next in line. But what you've got to look at is Joshua holds also the WBA and the IBF belts. So whoever wins on September the 25th, they're then realistically, they'll go and try and, if Joshua wins, they're going to try and make the undisputed fight. That'll be a 2-fight deal. So that's probably next year in reality, because Fury's now not fighting until October the 9th, if it goes ahead on that date. Then you're going to have a WBA mandatory, because that's not been fought since Povetkin, which was September 2018, I believe. Obviously, the IBF mandatory was December last year, so you might get a little bit of wriggle room. But, Sam Jones was talking about it today as if it's like big news, world title fight next. And it's not, is it? He's going to have a wait. It's, realistically, it could be 2.5 years away before they can realistically call that, because all the governing bodies are going to give special exemption so as the undisputed fight can be made. So that's next year done. So it's great for Joyce. But, I mean, personally, I'd love to see him. If he wins on Saturday, I'd love to see him in with a Chisora. I think, obviously, you need to stay busy. There's no good in thinking, after this, I'll take some easier fights and not take the gamble. We've nearly seen that backfire on Dillian White, haven't we? When you take the gamble and it's one fight too many. So I'd love to see him in with the likes of a Chisora next myself.
I think the difference with Joyce as well, he has come into it later. I think he was already 30s, wasn't he, when he turned professional? So he's not got time to wait. I think he's got to go for the big fights now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
he's not got 2 years. He's not got 2 years to wait, has he? I mean, he's 35 now. Say he's 37 when he fights for a world title. Depending on his lifestyle and everything else, it might be too late and he's past his best. So from a money point of view as well, you need the paydays, don't you? And there's only so much money you can make fighting on BT on a Saturday night, fighting Nathan Gorman and Fujimoto and all the other bloody people that Frank Warren puts in front of his fighters. So yeah, so that's it. That's it from me, guys.
Yeah, that's it from me as well.
No. Well, in that case, thank you all for watching, and like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.
Cheers, guys.
See you on next.